Delusional?
Look, she's the only positive emotion in a co-ed dorm of Debbie Downers.
Let her have this.
You want to know why Inside Out is awesome? Because out of all the movies bearing the credit of Disney Pixar's, this is the one that most displays peak DNA from both parents. It's the ideal mix of refined Pixar maturity and whimsical Disney magic. Taking us through the relatable trials of an emotionally compromised kid, showing the vital need for certain feelings that are often pushed aside or even despised, all told with the most imaginative yet easy to understand color and shape language I've ever witnessed in a family film, and scored with a soundtrack that just wraps you in a blanket of nostalgia for a simpler time. Seriously, you try listening to these twinkling tunes without feeling like a kid again. You can't do it! And while I didn't expect lightning to strike twice with Inside Out 2, I was at least hoping for something that was decent enough to stick around in the long term for a while. I mean, the Doctor is in after all, and he's been behind some of the studio's best, so from the start, I was firmly in the camp of, give my guy the wheel, let him cook, and more than likely, it'll be incredible. None of those movies were his, so that joke probably isn't gonna work. So in the end, were my beliefs well-founded? Oh, most definitely. In fact, the tensile strength of those babies were probably increased tenfold by the time I walked out of this flick. Inside Out 2 is a wonderful movie, with only the occasional hiccup of repetition without making it feel desperate. It feels like another chapter in Riley's story instead of just a reread of the first one, which is what I wanted more than anything. Riley's a teen now, what with the braces and the boy bands and the path to her future looking as refined as one of those squiggles she drew when she was 2 years old. You know, all good stuff. But when she heads to a hockey camp for a weekend and her quote-unquote true self gets shelved, our quintet of OG feels have to travel deep into the back of Riley's mind while headquarters gets a taste of some brand new emotions. Like anxiety and rest. Yeah, we got Barney, Colette, and Chica. They were super memorable. Alright, let's calm down a smidge and talk about the good stuff. Mainly the things they could have screwed up, but didn't. When I first saw the new emotions were gonna head into the head, my biggest concern was what would become of Joy. Joy is one of my favorite characters in Pixar's whole catalog. I love her perky demeanor, I love her jovial energy, her adorable voice, her nuanced arc, I love that dress, I love the way it twirls, and frankly, I was a little scared that they were just gonna copy and paste her arc from movie 1 about not getting along with her unorthodox roomies. Trust me, if they did anything to alter her personality or backpedal on her growth, I was ready to give my own Joy a ticket to Tahiti for the weekend, cause God knows I won't be needing him for a while, but they handled things with her shockingly well. Her and Sadness are the best of buds now, sharing plenty of cute moments together, and the lessons she learned regarding her are not only evident, but even blatantly stated in some scenes. Alright, maybe that's a little bit of overkill, but I'd much rather she repeat the lesson verbatim than shove it into the South Pole of her dome like she does with Riley's less than perfect memories. I won't spoil everything that happens, but Joy's arc is essentially an evolution of her arc from the first movie, where instead of realizing the importance of letting other emotions share responsibility and control, here it's more about releasing control altogether and understanding that while you aren't always needed, there will be times when you are wanted. I remember reading somewhere that Riley's emotions are meant to be stand-ins for parental figures that support and guide her. And this movie feels like the inevitable conclusion of parenthood for anyone, letting your kid be their own person and trust in their own beliefs and judgments while you wait in the background for a time when they want you to come back. Always looking out for them and loving them, but giving them the space to realize who they are instead of telling them who they're supposed to be. I know Riley technically has both parents alive, but who cares? Take a hike, Ponytail. Joy is the true best mom in this film. And the rest are like her aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, and her cousin whose morning Starbucks order consists of black coffee, Red Bull, and liquid adrenaline. One sip will make you wish you'd never been born. Seriously, we could have come into the world at least 3 hours ahead of schedule. What was wrong with us? Another lingering worry I had was that the movie was going to be yet another road trip through Riley's mental recesses, just this time with more peeps tagging along. Time for a retread of our favorite locales from movie 1, right? Well, not really. We get the inevitable updates to places like Imagination Land and the Dream Studio, but most of the spots we explore are almost entirely new, like the stream of consciousness, which was cute, the sarcasm, which was hilarious, and even a vault full of suppressed emotions and interests. We even get to see the unholy amalgamation of Dora the Explorer and Blue's Clues. You see, now I have an image to suppress too. Even the moments which do feel recycled from the first movie are given new context which breathe fresh life into them. Like there is a scene where Joy is lying amidst a pile of discarded memories while cycling through them and softly crying, just like in the first movie, but as we'll see in my spoiler section, the questions they raise with this rendition of the scene are actually pretty dang profound, and just like Joy's arc, a great extension of what was covered the first time around. You also gotta love the small jokes involving stuff in the brain similar to the first movie, like how there's a scene where all of Riley's memories literally come flooding back to her, and stuff like the aforementioned sarcasm, which makes for one of the funniest jokes in the movie. Honestly, when they were on their heroic journey to save their kid, I almost expected Joy to pull out a moral compass to help them find their way. Again, it's familiar, but not intrusively so. You'll wanna know what is intrusive though? Riley's new head honchos. Yeah, inevitably we were going to be seeing some new emotions if Inside Out ever got a sequel, and in my opinion, these guys represent both the best and worst parts of this movie as a whole. On one hand, Anxiety is excellent. A well-meaning antagonist who acts like a much more extreme counterpart to Joy, being overly controlling and trying to keep Riley safe and happy while failing to understand what's actually good for her. It's both hilarious and foreboding to see the entirety of headquarters slowly become encased in an orange glow as Anxiety takes tighter and tighter control of Riley's every action, compared to the start of the movie where the memory colors were a lot more diverse. Take it from someone who's alive, anxiety is an emotion that will assume control of you at many times during your existence. And while the movie does show that it's not entirely a bad thing, giving you a chance to predict future scenarios and plan accordingly, it's also important to understand that anxiety needs to be used as a preparation tool, not a solo driving force. It is an emotion that if left unchecked will put you in a mental state where instead of constantly looking towards the future, you could end up having no future. I know it can be a tricky world full of societal expectations and responsibilities, but at the end of the day, you need to stop focusing on what you have to be and realize who you are. And the way that Joy and her come to the same teary-eyed realization at the end of the movie about control is just fantastic. Great character, great arc, great emotional moments. Pun intended. Her three cohorts, on the other hand, I get what they were trying to do with the new emotions, basically making them slightly more complex offshoots of the feels we already know, like embarrassment is akin to sadness, ennui is similar to disgust, and even anxiety is like a combo of fear and joy. But aside from our little orange devil, none of the other characters felt fully realized or even that needed. Any diehard Inside Out 1 fan will know that each emotion in Riley's head is meant to fill a specific role. Joy keeps her happy in the moment, sadness helps bring people close so she can feel happy again, anger keeps things fair and just, disgust prevents poisoning, and fear keeps her generally safe. Anxiety, as she states herself, is meant to keep Riley prepared for what could and might happen, which makes complete sense. But why are the other three here again? Like, I guess ennui is supposed to keep it simple so the others don't overthink things, but some of her defining traits like the use of sarcasm was already kinda touched in the first movie, like when Disgust touched the console at the dinner table and Riley started talking all sarcastically, or even just her general interactions with the other emotions as a whole. Embarrassment, well, I guess he stops Riley from going into some cringy territory in social situations, but doesn't anxiety already kinda do that? Maybe he helps her in the moment while she helps her in the long run? And envy? Sweetheart, I love you, but why are you here? You literally just feel like anxiety's +1. I have no idea what role you actually fill in this head that isn't already filled by her. Unless maybe that was supposed to be the point? She's envious of how useful and productive anxiety is and wants to be just like her. You're really cute, but I don't know why you're here. Is it just for the bottom line? Because it kind of works. Seriously, you slap Envy's jelly bean face on anything, you better believe I'm buying it for $30.99 plus shipping and handling. Credit card number? Sure, take it. Take them all. What do I need them for? Food? Honestly though, even if we overlook function, their flash is very lacking as well. The original quintet had tons of memorable moments, even if some of them had less development than others. Like Anger had the way he thrust the levers forward going, "Full speed ahead!" with heavy percussion solos. Sadness was very articulate in describing her depression and was probably the most down-to-earth of the bunch, sometimes very literally. Fear was the constant victim of Looney Tunes-esque slapstick, making for a more unique animation style compared to the others. They all had their own strong flavor. But aside from being cute, or silent, or French, I didn't really find much worth remembering from most of the new characters. Heck, I can only recall like 1 or 2 crowning moments that really showed off who some of them were. And even those don't compare to bits like the triple dent gum rage from the first film. I wouldn't say that these guys are bad characters, they just lack a lot of the oomph that the first movie had. In fact, that's actually a small problem with the movie as a whole. Maybe I just have nostalgia bias here, but the movie didn't really feel as grand, spectacular, and imaginative as the original. I get that they're trying to go for a more grounded, mature direction with this one, and the morals definitely hit really hard, but in doing so, it kinda sacrifices a core part of the franchise's identity. When you think of the places and people that Joy and Sadness met during their adventure through Riley's mind, they all left a major impact. The deep, dark fear vault with the slim lighting and massive hammer-wielding clown. The dream studio, which felt bustling and alive. Imagination Land, which had all kinds of wacky creations and high energy. Even the Trench of the Forgotten felt hopeless and dire, with memories literally disintegrating all around, and darkness everywhere, making it feel like there's no escape. Every place had a perfectly realized vibe and a grand feeling scale to it. Meanwhile, the new road trip stops, while good for a laugh, don't feel as special or movie-defining as the ones that came before. Like the Vault of Suppressed Thoughts was just a less fun version of the Deepest Fears vault, the Stream of Consciousness was just a stream with random stuff floating in it, and the Sarcasm was just a chasm. The sarcastic echo joke was funny, but other than that, it is just a chasm. Again, this could totally be me, but while the original movie felt like a non-stop thrill ride in a theme park, this one felt like driving to various tourist traps and leaving kinda disappointed. Maybe what Joy said was right. As you get older, you really do feel less joy. Speaking of which, there are some deep cuts that I want to cover regarding this movie, so I'm just gonna put the heavy spoiler tab up real quick. Skip if you don't want the big moments ruined. Okay, here we go. So that line about feeling less joy, it comes from one of my favorite scenes in the movie, where our happy little heroine kneels down amongst a pile of discarded memories and comes to a major realization. Like I said, very reminiscent of the first movie, but this one actually has an interesting moment that kinda got me thinking more than I thought it would. Joy grabs a few of the memories she discarded with her custom-made "forget about it" tube, and tries to rewind them looking for answers on what to do. In the first movie, when she rewound a core memory, she learned about the importance of sadness. But this time when she hits rewind on any of these memories, there's nothing there. Like 1 second Riley will be angry about a bad grade on a test, and the next moment it's just an empty chair. Now, I only saw the movie once, but again, this scene feels like it's building on the whole emotions being parents concept I mentioned before. As your kid grows up, there will be times when you don't always have the full picture. There will be moments that you can't entirely be there for them, and you need to allow your kid to trust their sense of self, make judgments they believe is right, and most importantly of all, learn from future mistakes. If you constantly shelter them from even the most mild of bad events, their sense of self is going to be completely one-dimensional and devoid of nuance, positive or negative wise, and that's completely detrimental to their growth. The first movie was about feeling your feelings, and the second one is about retaining something beneficial from every life experience. Only then can you truly be you. This scene, more than any other, feels like a perfect progression from its predecessor, and as much as I want to call it my favorite part, there is one scene that I'd put slightly above it, and I think you know the one. With Anxiety as a main character, I'm sure most of us expected there to be a scene with one of the scariest experiences one can go through besides a flaming bear coming at you with a chainsaw. The infamous anxiety attack. And the way they visualize this is spot on. We see Anxiety swirl around the console in a Tasmanian Devil-style orange tornado, which actually looks kinda silly at first. But the longer we see it go on for, the more the music swells and then eventually fades out completely. We get a look at what Anxiety is doing inside the vortex, and she almost looks like she's glitching out at the command console. It seems like she's doing everything and nothing both at the same time, which is pretty accurate to how a panic attack works. Your mind is cycling through so many thoughts and doubts and worries while you are physically paralyzed and unable to do much else besides breathe heavily and twitch your muscles. I wouldn't go as far as to say this scene is haunting, but it was definitely dark enough to set the uneasy mood they were going for. And in the end, it's up to Joy to pull her away, allowing both of them to learn the same lesson about releasing control. Honestly, as much as I criticize the movie for lacking in oomph moments, this image of anxiety losing control while also controlling everything is definitely something I'm gonna remember for years down the line. So yeah, Inside Out 2 is pretty dope. Solid 8 out of 10. Now let me tell you why that's a massive problem. I'm sure all my fellow Pixar heads are familiar with a certain interview from a certain doctor about a certain direction his company is planning to take. You know, less personal stories and more mass appeal projects, aka sequels? Well, Inside Out 2 feels like it's going to be a litmus test to see if that idea holds any water. Meaning if it's profitable, which at the moment it definitely is, it's possible that the higher-ups might take the wrong idea from its success and confirm that what the public truly wants is a comfort bubble of familiar properties instead of anything fresh and new. Now, I think I speak for most folks when I say that it's not specifically sequels that we want. All we want are interesting, engaging stories, whether they be follow-ups or new ideas. The message they should take from Inside Out 2's W is not to move forward with producing sequels and prequels, but just move forward with producing good movies. There have been plenty of original Pixar concepts that have done incredibly well both money and acclaim-wise, as well as plenty of revival movies that resulted in the complete opposite. There are other videos that have covered this interview in detail, but to put it simply, Inside Out 2 is a great movie and an even better sequel, but in the same way that Riley needs to focus on everything she's experienced to ultimately succeed, the Pixar execs need to look at everything the movie is and does to get a full picture of why people love it. We're not just gonna buy tickets because something has a 2 on it. Well, okay, some people might, but most people are going to spend money on films that they believe are going to be interesting and passionate based on what is shown to them in trailers and promos. And if it ends up being good, they're going to do external stuff like buy merch and advertise through word of mouth because they enjoyed what they saw. That's usually how movies work, Mr. 38-year-old movie studio. Despite all this though, I'm still gonna remain hopeful that the Pixar peeps get the right message from their latest big hit and repeal that terrible plan for the future as soon as possible. And if they don't, well, I guess I can look forward to watching Toy Story 20, Incredibles 49, Ratatouille, and Down before I get put in the ground. That'll be fun. So yeah, those are my pros, cons, and future worries involving Inside Out 2. If you were apprehensive about seeing it at all, I recommend sitting down in a comfy chair, sipping some anxiety, and maybe reconsidering, cause it's a really good flick. And for those that have seen it, tell me what you guys think. Did Inside Out 2 become a core part of you, or will it be visiting the back of your mind in just a couple days? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and I hope to see you all real soon.